Okay, so I've invited James onto the channel to talk to us a little bit about learning Spanish. We all know that as we get a little bit older, well, our brains don't necessarily work in the same way that they did when we were at school. One of the reasons I wanted to bring James on the channel is that his students, as it were, are of a typical kind of expat age group. Over the years, I'm sure you've picked up a lot of tips from your students and learnt a lot of ways in which they face challenges and ways they've overcome those. And I really wanted to discuss with you now what some of the top tips you can give people are when they're approaching that challenge of learning Spanish.
Coming to Spain and want to learn to communicate. Yeah, the number one tip for everybody always is to find a way that's right for you, to not just pick up a dictionary, because that's not going to work. You'll just learn random words and it isn't going to work for multiple reasons. And to find a way, even if it's from a charity shop in England, the Michelle Thomas tapes, that are still going to help you. They're going to point you in the right direction, because you've got to have sort of a charter so you know where you're going. Just picking up words aren't going to work, because as you know, in Spain, we don't say things the same way that you do in English. We don't say, can I have? That's not going to work. We're much more direct when we say, I want or give me, and dame will come as alien to British people when they come to Spain to say give me instead of can I have, etc. So find a way that is going to work for you, and do not be put off by the fact that if you've tried to learn before and it hasn't worked, it isn't that you're inept and you can't learn. It's just that you haven't found the correct way yet for you, and that you do not need to go down the crazy grammar route, because even you probably don't know what a past participle is, but you can still speak English and you can still speak Spanish, and you can do all of that without learning all of these grammatical names, which 99% of my students, because they're retirees, they don't want all these grammatical things, but they think, I don't know any English grammar, so I can't learn Spanish. All you need is somebody to tell you that my in English is me in Spanish, that mine in English is mío in Spanish, and you don't need to know that they're possessive pronouns. That's the wrong way of going about it. So find a way that's right for you, and don't be put off if you tried before and failed, because there is a right way. There's no wrong way of learning the language, but there's the wrong way for you if your brain isn't designed for that. And normally, retirees and pensioners don't want to go down the grammar route, and that's why, they end up giving up.
No, I can totally relate to that myself, to be honest. I mean, I don't know. I learned Spanish through the route of, I did do a GCSE years and years and years, very, very long time ago.
Yeah. Don't mention the year.
No, but I learned through the process of talking to people and, literally living over here in Spain at the time. And I don't know. I really do not know what those structural kind of.
But you can speak that out. That's the biggest misconception, is that they think, I need to know these grammatical. You do not. You just need to have somebody that points you in the right direction, and that direction is very simple to find, as long as you have, an aim. Definitely.
I think it would hold me up if I was trying to learn that, sitting there thinking, what is the past participle of the verb?
You didn't learn your mother tongue like that.
No,
my mother didn't say to me, that's the past participle. She said drink, drank, and that was it. And but a child has a sponge as a brain, whereas an adult struggles a little bit more at remembering things. So there are, certain differences.
So what would a good starting point be if you wanted to look for the first few verbs and few important things which are going to help you go out into the world and get your point across?
You want me to teach them Spanish very quickly? By the course.
No.
So if I had to say
15 minutes.
Yeah, if I had to say to people, the first thing you need to learn is we have 6 verbs that we use every day in Spanish that are our go-to verbs that you can never leave home without having them in your pocket or on the tip of your tongue. And we're going to test your level of Spanish here, James, by asking you them. So the 6 that you cannot leave home without, that are going to make your life so much easier, would be yo quiero at the top space. So yo quiero, which means in English,
I want.
Correct, because as I've said earlier, in Spain we say yo quiero all the time, because we are much more direct than you guys are, because we're straight to the point, which we'll come to again in a moment. So yo quiero will be the first one. After yo quiero, I would say you were going to go with yo tengo, which means
I have.
I have, correct, because again, you're going to be telling people the problem you have. Yo tengo un problema, yo tengo una casa, yo tengo un coche, I've got ants, I've got cockroaches when you're in a shop. So you're going to make it straight to the point by learning that one. And then you start off by learning them in the first person only, just learn yo quiero, and then you can learn all the other people afterwards. But you start talking about I always. After that, we'd go with yo voy, or as they say in the Murcia region,
Boy.
boy,
Boy.
uar. So yo voy, because yo voy,
Yeah.
which has two meanings, James, doesn't it?
Yeah,
on.
it means I go or I am going.
Very
Correct,
good.
yeah.
You must have watched at least the first 3 lessons. So, yo voy, why is that a useful verb? Because we use it all the time in Spanish to say yo voy a la playa, yo voy a la farmacia, yo voy al hospital, I'm going to hospital. But also, you can use that as the lazy man's future, as I call it, without learning tenses. Because again, when I go tenses, people go, tenses, I don't know any grammar. If you put yo voy before any other word, like lavar, you can say yo voy a lavar mi coche, and you're talking in the future without realizing, because yo voy a lavar mi coche would mean
I am going to wash my car or clean my car.
correct. So you're talking in the future with just the word that you're using in the present tense. And you can't spend any time in Spain without hearing a Spaniard say vamos or vamos all the time, because we use it as an everyday word, don't we?
Yeah.
So that would be the next one I would go to. After that, I would go with yo puedo.
I can.
Correct, because yo puedo is very useful to make into a question. So instead of saying I can, you can make it can I as well. So you can say puedo pagar, puedo esperar aquí, can I wait here, puedo lavar mi coche en tu jardín, can I wash my car in your garden? It just makes life very, very easy.
So it means I can and can I.
Correct.
Same time.
It's just all in the voice. It's you don't have to learn huge amounts to become fluent. It's just learning the right things. After yo puedo, I would go with me gusta. Me gusta means
I like.
I like, because in Spain, because we're more direct, we're going to say a lot of me gusta el vino, me gusta tu casa, and a lot of no me gusta el vino, no me gusta la paella, I don't like the paella, which a Brit would never ever say because you're over polite. And then after that one, I would say the 6th one would be yo estoy.
I am. But I am in a temporary sense. Yeah.
Lesson 1, you've watched it. So I am in it, because that one you can use to make much longer sentences. And again, making all these sentences, never do you once say, oh, here we're using the present continuous. You don't need to, you just need to know that yo estoy fumando, I am smoking, and then you can say pagando, hablando, and it just becomes very, very simple. There's a very simple way with those 6 verbs. Once you've learned those 6, you can put any other word after them, and you've got much longer sentences. And then you've got to learn a handful of the joining words, like the at, in, the of, the from, because that's the common thing that most expats, when they come out here, don't know the joining words, so they end up speaking as if they're from Yorkshire, saying, I'm going to pub with dog foot pint, leaving out all the joining words. Once you've got that, you're 25% of the way there. So it's not huge amounts. So those 6 would definitely be the next thing that I would say to everybody. Learn those, but learn them properly, not learn them, know them, so you can say yo quiero straight away.
I mean, I think that's a really important point, because from those you can, as you say, you can stem out from there. You mentioned earlier how as you get older, your brain's not so much of a sponge as it was when you were a kid, and I've heard people say in the past that as they get older, their brain's full, they can't put more information in there. But I look at it very differently. If you think of it like a tree and you've got the trunk and that's your main basis of information, then from that you learn into branches, and then
Correct,
from the
yes.
branches
You've got to have the
into
foundation,
etc.
That's the
The
foundation.
more get that basis, and the more that
Correct.
you learn, it's easier to attach
Totally,
to
all
it.
the time, and that's why we're with the course. I mean, you started from the beginning of the course, having a look at the lessons. You know, why are you starting at the beginning when you've been in Spain for 30 years and you have a level of Spanish? Because there will be things that you have not learnt of your trunk, as you're calling it, that are not helping you when it comes to learning extra things. If those things were in place, you're going to then, everything else will fall into place later on. So that's why everybody has to start at the beginning. People go, how can James be doing lesson 1, 2, 3 and making some mistakes and this, that? Because there are things that you knew, but you didn't know why you knew them. And then you put it into place and it makes other things fall into place. That would definitely
That's it. I mean, it's an important thing. I've been learning Spanish. I would say when people say, how long did it take you to learn Spanish? I say I'm still learning, and that's after, well, at least 25 years.
Correct, yes.
30 years of speaking the language. I'm still picking things up. But there's loads of apps out there now, lots of promises of, you could be fluent in Spanish in 6 months or 3 months just from doing a little bit a day. That seems unrealistic to me. What kind of timescales do you think it would take people to, say, first get to that point where you can confidently go out and get what you want and what you need, whether you be in a restaurant, whether you be going to a shop or doing whatever. And then from there, what kind of timescales do you think people realistically need in order to start holding conversations with people?
Right. Yeah, well, the top tip would be to people, you've got to have patience, you've got to relax, and you've got to try again, because every single person is different. You can't compare yourself, but I say all the time that it is a marathon and not a race. And to think that you're going to be fluent in 3 or 6 months is just unrealistic, and it's not going to happen. I have huge problems with students that are perfectionists because they want to get everything right straight away, and that isn't going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to put your foot in it at some time. You're going to say things that are wrong, and it is going to happen, and you mustn't let that stop you from always progressing. Hard work beats talent, so you just keep progressing and learning. But realistically, you've got to think that it's going to be a year for you to be able to start conversing in Spanish. But to be fluent, you don't need to know every single word. You need to know the right words. And a Spaniard will always prefer, any day of the week, somebody who can keep a conversation going over somebody who knows all of the words but takes 6 to 8 working days to get the sentence out. A Spaniard will love somebody who's grammatically not there but is keeping the conversation going and backwards and forwards to somebody who is taking so long that they end up saying, we can speak in English if you want, because they just got fed up of waiting. So that's, you should always be realistic with your aim. You should take your time, and you should understand that it's going to be a constant learning. Like you just said, that I'm still learning words in English that, I didn't know. And people say, how can you not know that word? Because I've never, ever said that word before. And that's why I didn't know that that's how it was said in English. So you've got to have realistic goals and a time frame that is right for you, and just keep going, keep always constant learning.
So it can be quite daunting, I have to say, when you first go out there and you first start trying to use your Spanish in real world environments, outside of the classroom, outside of your, reciting things to yourself in the mirror or however people want to go about things.
Yeah.
So what kind of tips would you give to people who are first heading out into the real world and facing those kind of what seems to be a daunting challenge?
Yes, it is. At the beginning, the first baby steps of speaking is hard, but there would be two main tips. The first one, which a lot of people laugh at when I say it because they think, well, what's he talking about? The first one would be to repeat. When it's going to happen, it happens to all of my students all the time. They tell me that they go into their cafe, their house every day for the same, and they say, quiero 2 cafés con leche y una tostada. It works every single day. They do it for months on end, and then one day they go to a new bar, and they go in and they say, quiero 2 cafés con leche y una tostada, and the waitress goes, ¿qué? And they think, what have I said wrong? And they then change it and say, quiero 2 café blanco y pan en la, and the waiter goes, ¿qué? What you've got to understand, if you repeat exactly the same thing you've said again, word exactly the same, 99% of the time they'll go, muy bien, and off they'll go, and it'll come back.
It's very true. And if you don't, and you try to reword it, or you lose confidence in yourself and try to say it in a different way, then it just descends into chaos from there. But it's funny, you put that, it's in, I've gone through some of the lessons in your course, and you put that in there. And the very next day I was up in Murcia, deep into Murcia, stopped at a venta, it's like a roadside cafe, said to the guy behind the counter, quiero un cortado, which is, it's like a little white coffee. ¿Qué? And I said, quiero, and before I'd even finished saying it the second time, he said, un cortado, and off he went and got the coffee. And I thought that's a perfect example of what you were talking about. And if it hadn't
have been in the middle of Murcia, you would have think that I've bribed one of the local waitresses to say que all the time. But
I'm still not convinced, James.
No, I'm too tight. I'm too tight. But so the first tip I would give everybody is to repeat, because 99% of the time saying the exact same thing, you will get what you want. And then the second tip would be to simplify, because in Spain we simplify so much. Yep. So always, the English, British, I'm assuming, you're very guilty of overcomplicating things and making it too flowery and saying things like, awfully sorry to bother you, is there any chance of getting another pair of these in blue? Which a Spaniard would never say that. We would just say, quiero 2 más en azul, which is straight to the point. And instead of saying, awfully sorry to bother you, we've said, quiero 2 más en azul, which is...
I want 2 more in blue.
Correct. But, so there's always going to be an easier way of saying things, which your job is to have, again, somebody that said, look, simplify, speak like this is going to sound unusual, speak like an 8-year-old, because I always say that a finished student with my course has the conversational skills of an 8-year-old. My 8-year-old son, you could ask him what he's going to be doing on his summer holidays, what he did at the sports centre yesterday, but you can't discuss with him the ethnic cleansing in southern Beirut being hampered by the deneutralisation of troops. Why?
No.
Because that's out of his vocabulary level, because he's 8. You want to speak like an 8-year-old, you're going to be able to get your point across, you're going to be able to make yourself understood, which in places that you really need to, like when you break down, when you're investigating real Spain, your car breaks down, and as you know in Spain, the last step of a breakdown is always you have to speak to the
grua.
To the grua. Now the grua is our breakdown truck, tow truck,
something like that.
which you're not allowed to pull a car with a rope in England. You can pull a car with a rope in Spain. That you're banned if you do that.
I'm not sure if you're allowed to in England. I did it the other day, but
Somebody
someone
told me that
off.
you can pull a car, which the Spaniards go, no, they cannot. You have to ring a grua. And it doesn't matter that you've got your insurance with Direct Line. The last step, even though you speak to Direct Line in Madrid, the headquarters that speak English, you're going to get Manolo, who's going to ring you up and go, hola, ¿dónde está?
Boy.
Oh, I know, boy. So that's why you need to have your basic Spanish. So simplify. And there's an easier way to say everything. That would be the second tip for people who are attempting to converse.
Exactly. And with those first 6 words that you were saying there, from there, that's a good building block to really... We've said keep things short, but also if you don't know exactly what you're trying to say, you can work around it with the vocabulary you've got and with those verbs that you've got. It might take you a little longer to get your point across in those circumstances, but you can.
Correct. Fluency is not knowing every single word of a language. Fluency is having the right words at the right time.
Yeah.
That's what fluency is all about. I'm fluent in English. There are loads of words I do not know in English. My wife's fluent in English. There are loads more words she doesn't know in English, but she's fluent because she can keep a conversation going and she has the right words at the right time. That's what the key part is.
One of the things you're going to face when you're out there, though, like you say, when we've already mentioned how Spanish are a little bit more abrupt, etc., is you don't just necessarily directly translate the language, because it's not just about language, it's about culture as well. Correct. It's about understanding how, not just the words that people use, but how people communicate in Spain. So what tips would you give people about that?
Well, the tip is that you do need to learn about the cultural differences as well, to understand the fact that we are far more direct than you are in English. We say, dame in a bar or ponme in a bar, put me a beer, which you guys wouldn't think of saying. And when you understand this, because you've been working in Spain for many years, there's always English people that say to me, oh, the Spanish are so... direct, abrupt, and rude. Not rude, but we're just more direct. When we answer the phone, which seems strange to you guys, we say dime or dígame, which means tell me. Which in England you don't do that.
Picking up the phone and saying speak.
Correct. Which, as I say, you've got different things. The age group that I'm used to teaching, majority of them, when I would ring them up on their landline, they would go 9667635565, and I think, why are you telling me that? I obviously know that, otherwise I wouldn't be speaking to you. Or you do the Adele tribute band thing and go, hello, which in Spain we go, diga or dime, which is abruptness. But it's not. To us, it's straight to the point. So
that's the point. The translation, if you directly translate the words into English, it's rude in English, but it's not rude in Spanish.
And apart from the fact that you can't just translate, going back to the first point, you can't just pick up a dictionary and learn words. Because if you learn can I have in Spanish, isn't going to work, because puedo tener, which is can I have, Spaniards don't understand that. We don't say that. It doesn't make any sense to us to say can I have. And if you say I'm hot, literally, I am hot, literally, which I am hot.
Estoy caliente.
Correct. That does not mean I am hot, does it? It means,
I've made this mistake before myself.
Always to men. Yes,
it means estoy caliente would mean something more like I'm randy.
Correct. I am hot stuff for you.
In Spanish, you would say hace calor.
Correct.
I make heat. Or
correct.
Like
hace calor, tengo calor, but never I am hot. How are you going to learn that if you just pick up words from a dictionary? You need somebody
and directly translate word from word Spanish to English. It
is just not going to work. The fact you need to have a path and you need to have somebody explaining to you the cultural differences. So when you come to Spain, you understand why we don't. But never ever do I do I say to any of my students, doesn't matter whether they're classroom or online, oh, stop using your please and thank you and all that, because the Spanish now, we've got loads of English people here, and we know that the three things we say about you guys is that you're over polite, you're over punctual, and you leave massive tips everywhere you go, don't you? It's
I had that argument with my brother yesterday.
yeah. This what the 10% did he go for today?
Yeah, 10% on a €300 bill. There were a lot of us there. It wasn't that fancy a meal, but 10%, €30 on a €300 bill. If there'd been a Spaniard at the table, they would have thrown it back at him.
They would have died. Correct.
But we better keep quiet about that because
I've got friends who've got restaurants and they won't want to know. But they're over polite and over punctual. But the Spaniards are, as offended by the fact that when you arrange with an English person, you say be there at 11 and they turn up 25 to 11.
Yeah.
As offended as Brits are when you say to us, be there at 11 and we turn up 20 past 11. They find it equally as rude. Why are you here 25 minutes before? Because you're over polite, over punctual. But never do I tell my students to stop saying please and thank you. But I do explain these differences in the course so that you go, so it isn't rude when they say this, or it isn't. No, of course it's not.
It's all about that confidence when you're talking to people as well.
Yes, making your whole experience of coming to Spain or living in Spain as feeling more as a part of it all, which is what it's all about.
So in that mind, what would you say some of the common misconceptions people that people have when they're approaching,
Okay, the two biggest misconceptions. First one would be, as I said at the beginning, about that you have to learn all of the grammar. You don't need to learn any grammatical words to learn the language. You can learn that yo voy means I go or I'm going without learning that you're doing a present continuous or past participle or an imperfect. That would be the first thing you can learn. There is an easier way for you to learn. And I would say the bigger one is that speaking Spanish is going to be the hard part. Definitely not. Speaking Spanish is incredibly easy, and you know that you can go in anywhere and say what you want. The problem, the caca hits the ventilador when they come back to you
and you can't hear what
and
they're
you
saying.
don't understand what they're saying, and you're just like a rabbit in the headlights. By far the hardest part is going to be understanding. That only comes with hours and hours of listening practice. So going back to your question of what time frame does somebody need to learn a language, well, they need these hours and hours of listening practice until they've done at least 50 hours of listening to Spanish people talking. They're not going to be able to hold a proper conversation. So if you're only hearing a Spaniard once a week or a fortnight, your time is going to be much, much longer. And the problem is that when you learn these 6 verbs we were talking about, you're saying sentences that are grammatically sound, which then makes the Spaniards think that you're bloody brilliant. So you go in and you say, quiero dos paquetes de paracetamol, and they go, tenemos una oferta en ibuprofeno, quiero un par de paquetes de ibuprofeno, and you go, quiero dos paquetes de paracetamol. And that's the problem that everybody has. So the biggest misconception would be you don't need to learn grammar, followed by that it's not going to be difficult to speak. Anybody with half a brain can do it. You've proved it. And the hard part is going to be when they come back. And that takes a long time.
It's not that you have to sit listening to a Spaniard talking to you directly for hours and hours and hours. There's lots of ways you can go about that. I used to drive around with Spanish radio on. And,
or sit in a bar and listen to the...
Correct. Eavesdrop on what's happening next
Exactly, yeah. Or watch your favourite film on Netflix and change the language, which a lot of people go, you can't. You can change the language on every film on Netflix to Spanish. Start off with having it in Spanish with English subtitles, then evolve up to having the film in Spanish with Spanish subtitles, and then evolve up to Spanish with no subtitles. And then, you're up. But make it a film that you've watched many times and that you enjoy, so that you can
already, if I could watch Back to the Future, I know it word by word, so I could watch it in Spanish and I know what he's saying.
Correct. So when he says carreteras, no necesitamos carreteras, you know that absolutely. You know which part of the film we're talking about. That would be a valid way. But until you get that listening practice in, it's not gonna happen. So definitely those would be the 7 things that I would summarize. Everybody needs to get in their head before starting their language journey, or starting again because they've tried once. And just because you try and fail, you should not give up, because things do end badly sometimes.
And it's that analogy I said about a tree earlier. The more you learn, the easier it gets, and it is exponential. You get through those first few bits. Your ear starts to tie into things. You start to hear what people are saying. You start to think, I actually don't know what that word means, as opposed to what was that word he just said? Do I know it? It all just gradually clicks into place. And I mean, if I was going to add a tip myself to this, I would say that one of the biggest things you got to overcome is kind of your inhibitions here. You've got to not worry about it. We're not talking about learning Spanish to the level that you're going to go in and talk to your doctor about a really serious set of symptoms, or you're not going to go into, defend yourself in front of a judge or anything like that. If these kind of situations were to come up,
what is the worst that can happen?
Nothing.
You know, that you get a giggle because you've said...
Tell a barmaid that you're hot.
Yeah. But that's why they say a glass of wine loosens the tongue, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they think it makes...
Exactly. You're
more relaxed.
Yeah. But nothing... The Spanish people you're talking to, as you say, they'll appreciate the fact that you're trying and that you're making that effort. And that's in itself, to me, is worth its weight in gold.
Definitely. You don't need to think. You're not doing this to read Don Quixote or Cervantes. You're doing this to be able to communicate with the neighbour or go to a funeral or a tow truck driver when it's really needed. Definitely.
Brilliant.
Definitely.
Well, I think that's been really helpful, James. I really do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
James.
James.
¿Quieres una cerveza?
Por favor, necesitamos. ¿Quieres? So there's a good use of ¿quieres? Dos, or as they say in Murcia, dos. Definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
So there you have it. I really do think that the advice that James gave in that conversation is absolutely brilliant. Loads of really useful insights there. And I myself learnt a lot. I've gone through a few of the lessons on James's course. I've already been learning things myself after 20 odd years of learning Spanish. And so I'm going to carry on learning myself through that course. I'm going to keep going through to the end because there's always room for improvement, and well, I found it quite eye-opening so far. If you want to have a look at the course, there's a link in the description below. There is a discount code up on the screen now. I know that there's lots of people who watch this channel who know me and who know James from the local area. If you do know James, please do comment below. Let us know how you got on with James's course. Are there any tips that you can give to people who are going down the road that you've just been down or are going through at the moment? I'm sure that nobody's got a bad word to say about him because I know a lot of people in the local area. They've all given me good feedback on it. I will be back in the next video. Thanks for watching.